KirTop here, and these are 100 of the most incredible discoveries by archaeologists that changed the world. A creepy custom in ancient Egypt. In ancient Egypt, women's bodies were often set aside for mummification until later after death. This was not done for religious reasons, but to reduce the risk of unwanted actions by the priests. By delaying the embalming process, the ancient Egyptians were trying to make the female body less attractive and thus prevent cases of necrophilia. Since the ancient Egyptians attached great importance to preserving the body for the afterlife, the preservation of the dead was of utmost importance. In this regard, a measure was developed for women that was considered protective. This custom, although grim, demonstrates how important the ethical and physical protection of the body of the deceased was in Egypt for preserving honor and a peaceful transition to the afterlife. Burning UFO over Canada. 2018 Quebec. While on a walk and enjoying their vacation, the family noticed a strange object in the sky and decided to film it. An inexplicably shaped object was slowly rotating, glowing with green and bright red lights. Casual spectators were amazed, realizing that they had witnessed something truly strange and unusual. At first glance, it might seem that this is a spaceship burning fuel while gaining altitude. Canada is one of the few countries that officially records UFO data. As they collect data, they publish surprising findings and images, causing skeptics to doubt that humanity is the only superior race in the universe. The object caught in the video has no visible means of movement and exhibits anti-gravity properties, hovering in the air for some time. The absence of wings and exhaust gases proves that this is not an aircraft. Some skeptics tried to justify this with natural phenomena as an optical illusion, but on this day the weather was beautiful and it was clearly noticeable that this object was three-dimensional. A close guess suggests that the object was a hot air balloon with a mirror surface, but is this true? Perhaps we are simply denying the obvious, afraid to admit that aliens exist and they are already among us? Egg with runny white and yolk. In Britain, archaeologists have discovered a unique chicken egg from the era of the Roman Empire, preserved with liquid contents. The discovery was made in Buckinghamshire, along with other artifacts along a Roman road, suggesting the site was used for ritual offerings. Of the 4 eggs found, only 1 remained intact, containing liquid, probably a mixture of yolk and white. The discovery provides new evidence about ancient agriculture in the region. According to archaeologists from the Natural History Museum, this is the oldest known surviving bird egg. The largest meteorite on Earth. The mysteries of space have always excited minds, and meteorites serve as evidence of mysterious visits from deep space to Earth. An example of such an incredible visitor is the Goba meteorite, discovered in Namibia, which to this day inspires admiration for its size and history. Unlike the Tunguska meteorite, which left many questions and assumptions, Goba is tangible evidence of space travel to our planet. Weighing 60 tons, this gigantic piece of metal, decorated with ancient rust, today flaunts the amphitheater built especially for it and is one of Namibia's main attractions. The history of the discovery of the meteorite began in 1918 when farmer Jacobus Brits, plowing the ground, came across an unusual block. First trying to uproot it and then carefully examining it, Brits discovered that in front of him was an iron meteorite, the composition of which was later determined to be 81% iron and 17% nickel. This find became a sensation because at that time little was known about meteorites and the farmer dreamed of a big jackpot. The issues of transporting the huge space guest turned out to be so complicated that the sale had to be forgotten. Since then, the Goba meteorite, whose weight has been reduced to 63 tons over time due to chemical erosion and vandalism, has been protected and recognized as a national monument. Today, Goba not only surprises with its size, but is also a living lesson in history and astronomy, reminding us of how small and at the same time important we are in this vast universe. And although tourists continue to leave their marks on it, every scratch is quickly hidden under a layer of rust, as if nature itself is erasing the boundaries between the earthly and the cosmic. 1,500-year-old relic. Archaeologists from Innsbruck have discovered a rare ivory reliquary in an early Christian church in Irschen, southern Austria. This unique artifact, which is about 1,500 years old, is a box measuring approximately 20 by 30 centimeters, decorated with Christian symbols. A team of archaeologists led by Gerald Grabherr has been excavating the region since 2016. On August 4, 2022, they found the reliquary under the altar in the side chapel of the church. Although the artifact was damaged, researchers were able to identify it as a pyx, a round ivory container richly decorated with Christian motifs. This discovery was the first of its kind in Austria. There are about 40 such chests known throughout the world, and the last one was found about 100 years ago. Most pyx are kept in cathedral treasures or displayed in museums, making this find especially valuable. Ivory lying underground absorbs moisture, becomes soft, and is susceptible to destruction. Conservation of the artifact required careful and lengthy drying to prevent shrinkage and cracks. For 2 years, fragments of the reliquary were preserved for scientific analysis. Researchers are working on a 3D reconstruction of the pyx. This process will provide a deeper understanding of the history and significance of this unique find. Underground room under the pyramids. Scientists from Japan and Egypt conducted a study of the giant necropolis in Giza. Their attention was drawn to a plot in the Western Cemetery. Members of the ruling family and high-ranking officials were buried here. The burials were in tombs with flat roofs arranged in a row. There is a free area between them that has not been previously studied. Japanese and Egyptian scientists examined it using ground-penetrating radar and electrical tomography, which made it possible to look deeper without excavation. The scan showed that at a depth of half a meter to 2 meters, there is an L-shaped structure measuring approximately 10 by 10 meters. The authors of the study believe that this is not a natural formation, but an artificial one due to its regular shape and location. Researchers suggest that this structure may be part of a deeper structure. At a depth of 5 to 10 meters, the instruments also recorded an anomaly, indicating the heterogeneity of the rock. This could be another tomb or an artifact chamber. Rock Chronicles spanning 100 generations. Scientists from Argentina have discovered that ancient cave paintings in Patagonia are much older than previously thought. Using radiocarbon dating, the cave paintings were found to date back to around 6,200 BC during the late Holocene era, predating previous estimates by thousands of years. This underground gallery contains 895 unique images, grouped into 446 thematic groups. The study found that the cave was used as a site for the transmission of knowledge between hundreds of generations of hunter-gatherers who overcame the challenges of the harsh climate of ancient Patagonia by sharing information through rock art. Giant flames in the sky of South Florida. On February 9, 2021, a South Florida man was returning home from work when he suddenly noticed a flash of light, causing him to stop. Having recorded what was happening on his phone, Stewart witnessed an unusual phenomenon. At some point, a large white plume began to unfold across the sky, becoming larger and larger. This did not shock the worker, but rather amazed him because the phenomenon resembled a giant flame engulfing the night sky of Florida. As you know, this state is popular among UFOs. Since 1998, there have been more than 7,000 alien sightings in South Florida, some of which still defy logical explanation. As for this situation, the glow is as similar as possible to the trace left after the launch of Elon Musk's rockets in 2017. After the space mission began, similar glowing contrails remained in the sky, leading to an obvious conclusion. Despite the mysterious pattern in the night sky, it was probably not aliens, but a test of a hypersonic missile that left a bizarre trail that scared the residents of South Florida. Slug soup. In the 14th century, during the reign of the French king Philip VI, the physician Guido da Vigevano became famous for an unusual discovery. He found an antidote to aconite, one of the most dangerous poisons. Aconite is a perennial plant that contains powerful toxins that affect the heart, muscles, and central nervous system. In the Middle Ages, its poison was widely used by Muslim warriors to poison the Crusaders. But how did a medieval physician come up with the idea of creating an antidote? One day, Guido noticed slugs that were calmly eating the leaves of poisonous aconite without showing any signs of poisoning. He decided that since slugs were able to digest such poison, they could help in creating a medicine. Inspired by this thought, he collected the slugs and boiled them. turning them into a strange medicinal mixture. Before using the medicine on people, Guido first tested it on animals and then decided to take a chance on himself. For the sake of an experiment, he poisoned himself with aconite and then drank slug soup. The bold act did not go without consequences. He vomited 3 times, but soon he felt better. This experiment showed that the antidote worked and became an example of the courage and persistence of medieval scientists. Giant from the USA. At the end of the 19th century, deep in the dense forests of North America near a small settlement that is today known as the Black Hills, South Dakota, a discovery occurred that shocked the scientific world of the time. A local forester, walking along his usual routes, came across an unusually large stone protruding from the ground. He was surprised by its size and unusual shape and decided to invite a group of archaeologists from a nearby university. When archaeologists began excavating, they discovered that the stone was actually part of a giant stone sarcophagus. Inside, they found the well-preserved remains of a man whose height exceeded 3 meters. This discovery caused much controversy among scientists of the time, some of whom argued that the find could shed light on the existence of ancient giants mentioned in the legends and myths of many cultures around the world. Despite significant interest from the scientific community, much of the information about the find and the object itself have been lost over time. Only a couple of photographs taken during the excavations and a few entries in the personal diaries of the expedition members have remained to this day. These photographs, although not very clear due to the limitations of technology at the time, show the enormous size of the skeleton compared to the people who excavated it. Rich in history and mystery, the Black Hills continue to attract explorers and adventurers eager to uncover the secrets of ancient civilizations and perhaps find lost archaeological treasures. Thus, the story of the archaeological discovery of an ancient giant man remains one of the most mysterious and unsolved pages in the history of archaeology. The dark history of ancient columns. Sweden is a harsh country, and even against its backdrop, there are especially bewitchingly gloomy places. One of these is a trio of stone pillars on Gallows Hill, in a nature reserve north of Visby. The site claims to be the only surviving medieval execution site in Europe. The Galgberget Gallows, located on top of a small hill in the municipality of Visby, is an eerie but historically important site, one of the few remaining from the Middle Ages. Built in the 13th century, it was used to execute local criminals. Tall stone pillars surrounded by a low stone wall supported wooden beams from which the condemned were hung with ropes and hooks. The gallows was visible from the sea, serving as a warning of the harsh consequences that awaited the criminals. During archaeological excavations, the bodies of about 30 people were discovered near the gallows. All of them were executed. Some bodies were in wooden coffins, which was a luxury and indicated that these people belonged to the upper class. This shows that not only robbers and the poor were executed here, but also members of the elite. How thick is the layer of sand in the desert? When you hear the word desert, you imagine huge sand dunes stretching beyond the horizon. But the desert is not only sand under the hot sun, this is a world full of mysteries and unexplored corners open to exploration. Exploring deserts is not an easy task due to the extreme climate and sometimes difficult political situation. But there is much more to the desert than meets the eye. In addition to sand, there are rocky, pebble, mixed, and saline deserts, as well as Arctic deserts covered with ice and snow. All of them together occupy about 20% of the surface of our planet. Of particular interest is the depth of sand in deserts and what is hidden under this golden sea. Under the sand layer, there is always a stone foundation. Sand depth varies depending on location and various external factors, making measurements a challenging task. Sand dunes can move at speeds of up to 10 meters per year, making these seas of sand even more difficult to study. In the Sahara, the average sand depth reaches 150 meters, and in the Namib Desert, some dunes rise to 400 meters. It's not just rocks that hide beneath the desert sands. The Sahara, for example, contains reserves of oil, gas, and even fresh water, access to which is granted only to the most intrepid explorers. Scientists have mapped underground water located at a depth of about 75 meters, which represents a real treasure in the desert drought conditions. Artifact in the form of a cobra. Archaeologists have discovered a 4,000-year-old artifact representing a figurine of a snake that was likely used in ancient rituals. The discovery was made by a team of researchers from the National Tsinghua University in Taiwan in a sand dune in the northwest of the island, an area with a rich archaeological past. It is assumed that this figurine, made in the form of a snake, could serve as the handle of a ceramic vessel intended for ritual purposes. Associate professor at the Tsinghua Institute of Anthropology, Hung Lin Chiu, noted that the figurine resembles a cobra with a raised head and characteristic folds on the neck, which makes it a unique evidence of cult practices of antiquity. Snakes, a frequent symbol in religion and mythology, have been associated with the cycle of life and death, symbolizing creation and transition. Scientists suggest that the snake handle could decorate a sacrificial vessel, actively used in ritual rites by ancient priests. Stone needles. Archaeologists have discovered 6 ancient stone artifacts on the shores of Lake Xiaoda Tso in Tibet. These finds may be the world's oldest stone needles, dating back approximately 9,000 years. The artifacts, found by student Yun Chen in 2020, resemble thick needles with a pointed end and a hole for thread. Their elegant design is amazing, as each needle is made with great effort. The scientists said the needles were made from hard materials such as tremolite and serpentine, suggesting they were used to sew thick materials, possibly tents. The scientists used ultra-deep microscopy and 3D modeling to study the techniques used to create them, including complex scraping and drilling processes. Particularly interesting was the discovery of traces of red paint on one of the needles. The color red had important cultural significance for the ancient Tibetans, symbolizing vital energy and protection from evil spirits. Some researchers believe that the needles could have been used to weave nets or as decorations. However, if these artifacts are indeed quills, it greatly advances our understanding of the ancient technology that allowed ancient people to create better shelters and clothing to survive harsh climates. Stone with mysterious marks. A geography teacher named Graham Sr. was clearing out an overgrown garden outside his Coventry home when he came across a stone with mysterious cuts. Intrigued by the find, he sent the photographs to a local archaeologist. Graham was shocked to learn that the marks on the stone were made more than 1,600 years ago and that the artifact was worthy of museum display. The rectangular sandstone stone was covered with writing in the Agam alphabet, which was used in the early Middle Ages primarily to write the Irish language. Before the advent of parchment manuscripts, the Irish used the Agam system, which consisted of parallel lines carved into stone or wood. Rare examples of such stones provide important data about early Irish language and culture. Catherine Forsyth, professor of Celtology at the University of Glasgow, confirmed that this is a letter from the Agamas, dating from around the 4th to 6th centuries. The stone, 11 centimeters long and weighing 139 g, has inscriptions on 3 of its 4 sides. Its purpose remains a mystery, but scientists speculate that it could have been a portable memento. The inscription on the stone consists of 2 parts. The first part contains the person's name, Mael Damkiel. The second part is less clear and may be an indication of location, but the exact meaning remains unknown. Is the Alaskan Triangle a secret alien base? The Alaska Triangle is a sparsely populated area located between Juneau Anchorage and the small town of Barrow. According to official data, more than 20,000 people have disappeared in this analog of the Bermuda Triangle since 1970. Researchers claim strange paranormal activity, and some believe that aliens live here, having set up secret underground bases. By being close to humans, aliens can spy on military technology, which points to a number of strange events and an increase in UFO sightings after World War II. The disappearance of 44 military personnel and a Douglas C-54 aircraft can only confirm this assumption, since search and rescue operations did not yield any results. It would seem that all this is baseless speculation. But in 1995, declassified documents revealed that the highest point of the Alaskan Triangle, Mount Hayes, was mentioned in a top-secret government project called Stargate. The documents not only talk about aliens, but also claim that their base was located under the base of the mountain. No one was physically there, but the CIA used an experimental research technique called remote viewing. The psychic projection method allowed people with supernatural abilities to look into any place without physically leaving the CIA building. While working on the project, the one who stood out the most was a psychic named Pat Price. He became the first to confirm the presence of aliens hiding deep under a mountain in the middle of Alaska. The psychic's predictions were amazingly accurate, as were the drawings of what lay beneath Mount Hayes. The alien base had a clear structure consisting of tunnels, and the CIA agents knew about it. Soon after what he saw, Pat began to fear for his life, telling his loved ones that he had put himself in danger. Unfortunately, the psychic turned out to be right, as he was accidentally pushed in a Las Vegas hotel. The acute pain in the leg was not cause for concern, but the man died the next morning. What is equally astonishing is that the hospital did not notify the relatives of what had happened, but simply cremated the body. Pyramids of Giza. The greatness of ancient Egyptian civilization is most clearly demonstrated in the Pyramids of Giza, standing on the Giza Plateau as eternal guardians of time. Built over 4,500 years ago, these monumental structures remain one of mankind's most significant achievements, demonstrating not only architectural mastery but also the ancient Egyptians' advanced knowledge of mathematics, astronomy, and engineering. In 2013, archaeologists discovered papyrus fragments that shed light on the mechanisms by which limestone blocks were transported along the Nile. These documents, written by the chief of the pyramid's builders, recount the complex logistical operation of transporting the stones from the Tura quarries to the Giza Plateau. The use of waterways and specially designed canals demonstrates a high level of engineering and planning. The Pyramid of Cheops, also known as the Great Pyramid, is striking in its astronomical accuracy. The orientation of the pyramid almost perfectly coincides with the four cardinal directions, which indicates the deep knowledge of the ancient Egyptians in the field of astronomy. This achievement required not only accurate astronomical observations, but also the development of mathematical and geometric calculation methods. One of the most fascinating mysteries of ancient Egypt is the mystery of the disappearance of the pyramid's shine. The pyramids of Giza were originally lined with sparkling white limestone which reflected sunlight, making them visible for tens of kilometers around. This brilliant appearance not only emphasized the greatness and power of the pharaohs, but also symbolized their divine origin. Over time, most of the casing stones were looted or destroyed, which led to the loss of the original appearance of the pyramids. For nearly 4 millennia, the Great Pyramid remained the tallest man-made structure on Earth until it was surpassed by Lincoln Cathedral in England in the 14th century. This fact emphasizes the exceptional achievements of ancient Egyptian civilization in the field of architecture and construction. The construction of the pyramids involved the use of millions of stone blocks, each of which weighed from 2.5 to 15 tons. The ancient Egyptians developed and used sophisticated techniques and tools to quarry these blocks, process them, and place them precisely. Nubia, located south of Egypt, played a significant role in the history and culture of ancient Egyptian civilization. This region, rich in gold and other valuable resources, influenced the development of Egyptian art, architecture, and religion. The Nubian pyramids, although smaller in size compared to their Egyptian counterparts, demonstrate unique architectural skill and evidence the close cultural ties between the two regions. It is important to note that over 200 pyramids were built in Nubia, making the region one of the largest concentrations of pyramids in the world. Shadows of the Dead. After the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki by the United States in 1945, survivors were struck by eerie shadows on the streets and walls of buildings, silhouettes of people, trees, bicycles, and other objects. These imprints were silent witnesses to the last split second before people died. They looked more like photographs than shadows. As Dr. Michael Hartshorn of the University of New Mexico School of Medicine explained, this effect is caused by the intense light and heat released by the explosion of an atomic bomb. When an atomic charge detonates, an incredible amount of energy is released, which spreads in all directions at great speed. Any object standing in the path of this energy creates a screen, protecting the space behind it. This space remains darkened because the surface around it is subjected to a powerful thermal effect and discolored. As a result, a clear silhouette of the object is formed, as if imprinted on the surface. These shadows are a kind of death, photographs taken in a moment of the brightest light and capturing the last moments of people's lives. Ancient Ruler's Cup. In 2014, archaeologists in Athens made a surprising discovery. A wine goblet broken into 12 pieces which scientists believe belonged to Pericles, the legendary Athenian leader whose reign marked the golden age for Athens. This historical artifact is now kept in the Epigraphic Museum of the city. The most intriguing thing about this find is the inscription that includes the names of 7 men, including Pericles and, presumably, his brother Ariphron. The inscriptions engraved on the bowl became visible only after a certain inspection of the artifact. The name Ariphron, standing next to the name of Pericles, indicates a deep connection between these figures. It is believed that the cup was used during Pericles' youth at a wine symposium, where participants traditionally had their names engraved as a sign of remembrance of the fellowship. The find provides a unique insight into the culture and customs of ancient Greek society, allowing us to look into the past and feel the connection of times.
Large-scale horse burials. French archaeologists recently made a surprising discovery in Villiers-sur-Indre, discovering 9 large burials containing the remains of horses that lived about 2,000 years ago. The burials contain 28 horses, carefully placed on their right sides with their heads facing south. The remains of 2 dogs were found nearby with their heads facing west. These finds date back to the period of the Gallic Wars, approximately between 100 BC and 100 AD, when Julius Caesar was actively engaged in military operations. The burials attracted the attention of archaeologists for their features. The horses, only 1.2 meters tall, were typical of Gallic breeds. The method of their burial was similar to those previously found in other regions of France, indicating a possible ritual or ceremonial nature. Interestingly, all the horses found were adults, which rules out common diseases as the cause of their death. Scientists from France's National Institute for Preventive Archaeological Research are analyzing the bones to determine whether the horses died in battle or were part of an elaborate ritual. To solve the mystery, researchers took DNA samples from the bones and surrounding sediments to determine whether the horses were Gallic or used by Roman units.
A letter to a loved one, written 440 years ago. While renovating an ancient cemetery in Andong, South Korea in 1998, archaeologists discovered the 16th century coffin of Yun Tai of the Goseong Yi clan, where they found the mummified remains of a 30-year-old aristocrat. Inside the coffin was a leather bag with documents, including a touching letter from the deceased's pregnant wife. She addressed her deceased husband and the father of their unborn child. Next to the man's head lay sandals woven from hemp and his wife's hair, which was a symbol of love and hope for healing. The sandals were accompanied by a note from his wife saying that she had woven them from her hair before he could wear them. The find was the first archaeological confirmation of the Korean tradition of making shoes from human hair, mentioned in literature as an expression of deep affection.
Oldest bead in America. An archaeological team from the University of Wyoming found the oldest known bead in North America at the ancient mammoth site La Prairie in Converse County, USA. At this site, there are traces of an ancient hunting camp and the remains of a young Columbian mammoth. The research, published in the journal Scientific Reports, revealed the discovery of a Clovis bead made from the bones of a hare. This object, 7 millimeters long and 1.6 millimeters wide, probably served as a decorative ornament for clothing. The bead is polished, has smoothed edges, and is covered with red ochre. There are grooves on the outside of the bead indicating that it was made using stones or teeth. To determine the origin of the bone material, scientists from the University of Washington conducted a mass spectrometric analysis of collagen. Analysis confirmed that the material was either a metapodium or a proximal phalanx of a hare. This discovery provided the first conclusive evidence of the use of hares during the Clovis era, dating back approximately 12,000 years ago. The Clovis era is noted for the discovery of distinctive stone tools named after the Clovis archaeological site in New Mexico. Supernatural destruction of Mohenjo Daro. In 1922, an officer from the Archaeological Survey of India, along with a Buddhist monk, went to the area, which turned out to be a religious monument. Instead of mounds of mud and stones, an entire Bronze Age city with a grid of streets, complex drainage systems, and flush toilets was discovered in Sindh, modern-day Pakistan. The city was part of the Harappan civilization, which reached its peak 5,000 years ago and ceased to exist around 1900 BC. The Mound of the Dead is the legacy of one of the oldest civilizations. The inhabitants of Mohenjo-Daro were in no way inferior to Egypt and ancient Mesopotamia. Once upon a time, this region was inhabited by about 35,000 people, but archaeologists managed to find only 43 skeletons that have survived to this day. The city's disappearance was mysterious, but in 1977 a British researcher discovered evidence suggesting it was caused by a massive explosion. Melted rocks and calcified skeletons suggest that the inhabitants of Mohenjo-Daro died instantly. In 2014, a doctor of mineralogy conducted a series of analyses and tests which suggests a connection between the Harappan civilization and aliens. This is indicated not only by the high level of development of the local residents, but also by the fact that they burned at a temperature of several thousand degrees. There are no volcanoes here, and the technology to reach such temperatures did not exist.
When the ancient Egyptians laid the foundation for their magnificent pyramids, the world was a completely different place. Woolly mammoths still roamed our planet, emphasizing the contrast between ancient civilizations and primitive nature. Among all the architectural wonders created by human hands, the Pyramid of Cheops stands out especially. Not only is it the only one of the 7 wonders of the world that has survived to this day, but it also has a unique architectural feature: 8 sides and not 6, as it might seem at first glance. This feature of the Great Pyramid becomes noticeable only in certain lighting and emphasizes the high level of knowledge of the ancient builders. Interestingly, contrary to popular belief, the pyramids do not contain hieroglyphs or other records that could tell about the life and beliefs of the ancient Egyptians. This makes them different from other tombs, which are often decorated with images and texts. The Great Pyramids are more monumental burial grounds than history books, and none of the treasures or paintings typically associated with pharaonic tombs have been discovered. The greatness of the pyramids also amazed later generations. Napoleon, having visited the Great Pyramid at the end of the 18th century, was so amazed by its scale that he estimated that the blocks of the pyramid would be enough to build a 3-meter wall around the entire mainland of France. This demonstrates the extraordinary amount of labor and materials that went into creating the pyramid. Only the Great Wall of China and the Three Gorges Dam can rival the Cheops Pyramid in terms of weight and scale of construction, which shows how far mankind has advanced in the art of construction. Concluding this fragment, it is worth remembering Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of Egypt, whose life was closer to our time than to the era of the construction of the Cheops Pyramid. This is a reminder of the immensity of time during which the ancient Egyptian civilization developed and changed, leaving behind such magnificent monuments as the pyramids.
Janus in gold. Under the ground of Krakow's Wawel Castle, archaeologists discovered an amazing artifact, a gold ring from the 11th to 12th centuries with a two-faced design, unique in Polish history. Unlike typical Christian symbols of the era, the decor of the double-faced ring may indicate a connection with Janus, the Roman god of beginnings and transitions, who has no analogues in Greek mythology. This rare find demonstrates the high level of craftsmanship of its creators. The ring, which has a thickness of 1.5 millimeters, a diameter of 4 millimeters, and a circumference of 57 millimeters, is distinguished by its intricate decoration. This makes it exceptional among other early medieval jewelry found in Poland, which was usually either unadorned or had simple geometric designs. Researcher Jerzy Trzebinski emphasizes the uniqueness of the ring, suggesting that it could have been made by local craftsmen and may have belonged to the upper echelon of society during the Piast dynasty. The ring was found in the basement of the Danish Tower, built by order of Vladislav II Jagiello during the era of reconstruction of the castle. Leather shoes from the tomb.
Chinese archaeologists are restoring 1,400-year-old leather shoes found in the Astana tombs, capital of the ancient kingdom of Gaochun.
German experts are helping with the restoration. Finding such old leather or textiles is rare, as they quickly decompose when exposed to air. The shoes, recovered from an archive of objects excavated since the 1950s, are 24 centimeters long and consist of upper, shaft, and sole pieces sewn from goatskin with animal sinew. Archaeologists have been exploring the tombs for more than a century. Since the 1950s, 456 tombs have been studied in 14 excavations, yielding some 10,000 valuable relics. The hot, dry climate preserved many items that would otherwise have been destroyed, including 300 leather items. Ancient shoes have been found in other archaeological sites around the world. For example, hundreds of shoes or moccasins were found in a cave in Utah that was inhabited about 850 years ago. On the shores of the Great Salt Lake, 207 moccasins made from animal skins, mostly children's, were found. The soles of the shoes were made of full buffalo leather lined with fur and stitched at the heel, characteristic of the Canadian subarctic style. The presence of so many children's shoes indicates a thriving population, despite people leaving the region due to drought. These shoes were created by the promontory culture. In May 2014, the world's oldest pair of trousers was discovered in China.
Archaeologists have found the remains of 2 nomads and 3,000-year-old patterned trousers in western China, supporting the theory that the switch from tunics to trousers was a practical decision for horsemen.
It is impossible to say exactly when humans began making clothing due to the rapid decomposition of fabrics, but estimates range from 100,000 to 500,000 years ago. The first clothes were made from skins, fur, herbs, leaves, bones, and shells. The oldest dyed fibers were found in a cave in Georgia and are 36,000 years old.
The clearest photograph of a UFO. On September 4, 1971, in the northern highlands of Costa Rica, photographer Sergio Loaiza was conducting aerial photography of Lake Cote for the National Geographic Institute. Using a special mapping camera that takes photos at 13-second intervals, he did his job unaware that one of the frames would be unique. Upon returning to the laboratory, Sergio checked the photographs and noticed in one of them a mysterious round metal object located on the right side of the photograph. It is noteworthy that an object resembling a flying saucer was not detected in either the previous or subsequent frames. For some time, the National Geographic Institute tried to hide the discovery, prohibiting Sergio and his colleagues from talking about the incident. A metallic flying object with a diameter of more than 18 meters was a closely guarded secret. But in 1979, a photograph appeared in an Argentine newspaper and was analyzed by experts. Soon, Costa Rica declared the photo as official confirmation of the existence of a UFO. Despite many years of study and debate among researchers in this area, no one has been able to say what kind of object this is. Skeptics suggested that the object on the right side of the photo was some kind of debris or stain that got onto the film while working with photographs. In 2021, a family friend was able to obtain the original photo in order to scan it using modern technology. This made it possible to digitize the image, making it clearer and more detailed. This allowed skeptics to see the saucer-shaped object at a higher resolution. The updated image allowed us to discard a number of banal assumptions and theories, since this was not a stain or chip on the camera glass. So what was it? Share your guesses in the comments. A piece of cake. On February 10, 1840, Queen Victoria married Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. At their wedding, an impressive cake weighing about 136 kilograms was served. The 3-tiered treat was decorated with miniature figurines of the bride and groom in Roman attire, as well as an exquisite retinue made of refined sugar, which was then a truly luxurious and rare product. The inside of the cake was generously soaked in alcohol and filled with lemon, elderberry, sugar, and dried fruit. However, there was a problem. Victoria was on a diet, and the guests, it seemed, were not so hungry as to overcome a cake weighing more than 100 weight. Therefore, at the end of the celebration, the Queen ordered that the cake be cut into small pieces, which were then placed in tin boxes and distributed to friends, family, and other honored guests. Thus began the tradition of giving guests pieces of the wedding cake, a tradition that even at the royal court took the form of a keepsake. Many owners of these souvenirs decided not to eat them because they were a valuable gift from the Queen herself. Some slices remained untouched and have survived to this day. Today, pieces of Victoria's wedding cake are true relics. Several of them are in the Royal Trust collection, and one such piece was sold at auction in 2016 for £1,500. If this seems like an impressive sum, it is worth noting that in 1998, part of the wedding cake of King Edward VIII and Wallis Simpson, dated 1937, was sold at Sotheby's for $29900. But surprisingly, Victoria's wedding cake is still edible thanks to its high alcohol content. Theoretically, it could be tried today, although it would most likely remain just a legend. Helped swallow, breathe, and talk. Polish archaeologists have discovered a unique medical prosthesis designed for a person with a cleft palate, which is about 300 years old. This defect occurs when the roof of the mouth does not close properly during development and can now be corrected with surgery. However, 3 centuries ago, people were forced to look for other solutions. The prosthesis was found in the Church of St. Francis of Assisi in Krakow and is the first of its kind found in Poland. It was probably custom-made for a specific person with a cleft palate to make their life more comfortable. The device was inserted into the mouth and filled the gap in the roof of the mouth, performing functions necessary for normal life. The uniqueness of this prosthesis lies in its design. It consists of 2 parts, a metal plate that acts as the hard palate and a woolen lining for a snug fit to the mouth. The hard palate helps with swallowing, breathing, and speaking, and also holds objects in the mouth, preventing them from entering the nasal cavity. This small device, about 3 centimeters long and weighing only 6 grams, was quite advanced for its time. To study the prosthesis in more detail, scientists used a special microscope and X-ray analysis. They discovered that the metal parts were made of copper mixed with gold and silver. The wool pad contained traces of silver iodide, probably to protect against germs and maintain cleanliness.
Cubic UFO scared the plane pilot. In February 2020, an aircraft on duty in Colombia collided with an unusual air object. Being at an altitude of more than 9 kilometers, the captain took a mobile phone in order to film a metal object moving in a straight line. Something that looks like a cube has nothing in common with a balloon or other objects capable of being at such a height. The distance from the aircraft to the object has not been established, so its estimated diameter is between 3 and 5 meters. Scientists suggest that extraterrestrial civilizations are afraid of a direct collision with humanity and are not ready for direct contact. The object caught on camera may be analogous to a scout who found himself on Earth in order to observe us from the side. Perhaps the aliens are studying us and are slowly preparing to visit our planet. Is it so? Time will tell, but the experts who evaluated the video did not reach a consensus. The object does not have wings and does not leave a trail, which means it is not a man-made device. Skeptics suggest that the metal cube is just a balloon that was inflated at an altitude of more than 9 kilometers, but physicists are convinced that the low temperature would not allow it to rise so high.
Mystical riddles of ancient Egypt. Since ancient times, the heavens have inspired the Egyptians to create majestic monuments. The astronomical knowledge underlying the construction of the pyramids is amazing in its accuracy and depth. The pyramids of Giza, aligned with amazing precision in accordance with the stars of Orion's belt, testify to the extraordinary knowledge of the ancients in the field of cosmology. Such accuracy gives rise to speculation about possible extraterrestrial influence or even assistance in construction. Various texts, including the pyramid texts, hint at a deep connection between the divine and the cosmic, suggesting that knowledge may have been passed down to humans from more advanced civilizations. The complexity and sophistication of ancient Egyptian architectural and engineering achievements, such as the ventilation systems inside the pyramids and the acoustics in the temples, raises admiration and many questions. How were the ancient Egyptians able to so precisely craft and set multi-ton stone blocks without any visible modern technology? Some argue that such knowledge could have been gained from the gods who, according to myth, visited Earth sharing their technology. These speculations are fueled by discoveries of unusually accurate star charts, surgical instruments, and other items indicating a high level of scientific and technological development. The discovery of artifacts with images resembling modern aircraft and complex mechanisms adds to the mystery of Egyptian history. For example, reliefs depicting objects resembling helicopters and submarines are controversial among scientists. Perhaps the ancient Egyptians were inspired by visions of the future or used artifacts left behind by more advanced civilizations as prototypes to create their own technologies. There is a theory that the ancient Egyptians had knowledge far ahead of their time, including the secrets of eternal life, methods of treating diseases that were incurable at that time, and ways to generate energy. This knowledge may have been lost over the centuries, leaving behind only hints and references in religious texts and myths. The discovery of medical instruments, astronomical knowledge, and chemical compounds used in mummification supports the idea that the ancient Egyptians had advanced knowledge. Imagine for a moment that an artifact was found in the depths of the Great Pyramid, indicating contact with an ancient civilization with technologies far superior to our own. The discovery of such a crystal, perhaps emitting an unknown type of energy, could revolutionize our understanding of history, science, and the very nature of reality. This hypothetical scenario embodies humanity's eternal quest beyond the known to discover lost knowledge that could change the world. Iraqi ghost. Not long ago, a video published by the famous American ufologist and director Jeremy Corbell blew up the internet space. The so-called Iraqi ghost, shaped like a jellyfish, has caused heated discussion online and attracted the attention of both scientists and avid skeptics. The published recording shows how a ball-shaped object with hanging tentacles flies smoothly and without changing its speed over an American military base located in Iraq. The source claims that after this, the ghost sank into the pond and stayed there for 17 minutes, after which it took off sharply at an angle of 45 degrees relative to the ground, and having gained incredible speed, disappeared from visibility. Unfortunately, the footage only shows a flight over the base, but the soldiers did not notice the object, which indicates its silent movement. Another interesting feature is the change in color of the UFO, becoming gray, white, and then black. All this indicates a change in the temperature of an object that feels great both in water and on land. Scientists suggest that UFOs are the result of the activities of an underwater earthly civilization, about which humanity still knows nothing. Ufologists are convinced that this video confirms the existence of aliens using objects of extraterrestrial origin. Critics are convinced that the Iraqi ghost is hot air balloons flying close to each other. It is impossible to confirm or refute their statements, since the recording was not made while the object was immersed in water. It is noteworthy that this is not the first UFO that has the shape of a jellyfish. In 1977, the famous Petrozavodsk phenomenon occurred when 100 people saw an unidentified object resembling a sea monster. A similar object was spotted in Sao Paulo in 2020, causing shock among temperamental Brazilians. Separately, it is worth mentioning the fact that the recording was filmed in 2018, but the US government diligently hid this information, fearing public disclosure.
Ancient Roman giant. In an area near Rome, archaeologists have discovered a unique ancient human skeleton with gigantism. With a height of 202 centimeters, the man stood out among his 3rd century contemporaries, where the average height was about 167 centimeters. Gigantism is an extremely rare phenomenon, affecting approximately 3 people in a million, and is associated with the dysfunction of the pituitary gland in childhood. Previously, partial skeletons had been found in Poland and Egypt, presumably indicating gigantism, but the Roman find was the first confirmed case from antiquity. The skeleton was found in 1991 during excavations of the necropolis in Fidena under the administration of Rome. The archaeological team immediately noted the unusual length of the tomb, and later research confirmed the features of the bones. The researchers found skull lesions consistent with a pituitary tumor, as well as disproportionately long limbs and evidence of bone growth in early adulthood. The early death of a man, presumably between 16 and 20 years of age, may indicate problems associated with gigantism. The skeleton was found without funeral items, and its burial did not differ from the traditions of that time, which indicates its acceptance by society. The symbolism of this find underscores the interest of Roman high society in people with physical abnormalities. Ancient wolf from permafrost. During an expedition in Siberia, an incredible discovery was made. An ancient wolf, surprisingly well preserved in permafrost. The discovered carcass of a wolf at a depth of about 40 meters near the Terracotta River in the Abiysky region of Yakutia was transferred to the Mammoth Museum in Yakutsk for further research. The condition of the wolf amazed scientists. After 44,000 years, fur, bones, organs, and even terrifying teeth were preserved. Experts are calling the discovery unprecedented because it is the oldest known wolf to undergo a necropsy. They hope that studying the stomach and other organs will shed light on the wolf's diet and environment. The stomach remained isolated and free of contaminants, providing an instant snapshot of ancient Pleistocene biota. Examination of its contents can reveal not only what the wolf ate, but also its prey. Judging by the wear of the teeth and the development of the sagittal ridge, it has already been established that this is an adult male. The study of ancient bacteria could help in the development of new drugs and biotech products, highlighting the enormous significance of this discovery for the future. This discovery not only reveals the secrets of the ancient world, but also opens up new horizons for science and medicine.
Are aliens sending signals from space? With the development of modern technologies, humanity began to study not only the surrounding space, but also outermost space. Technological progress does not stand still, and new inventions make it possible to obtain more and more information about how this world works. Scientists have repeatedly received signals from space that are of a strange nature. Some of them took decades to study, which is intriguing and suggests that aliens living somewhere far away are trying to contact us. The strangest and most mysterious signal received from space was a radio signal emanating directly from the center of the Milky Way galaxy. In 2020, astronomers around the world were stumped when an Australian radio telescope identified more than 2 million objects sending signals to Earth. The computer qualified all radio signals except one. An unknown object lurking at the center of our galaxy was emitting powerful radio waves, sending out 6 signals in 9 months. The irregular structure and polarized radio emission were unlike any previous signal. Equally strange is that the object cannot be seen with X-ray or infrared light. 2 powerful radio telescopes observed it all this time, but the object mysteriously disappeared. It would seem that this is where the story ends, but a year later the strange radio signal was repeated and disappeared again a day later. This atypical behavior suggests that this is not a dead star or other space object known to mankind. Stumped, scientists classified the rare signal into a category called radio transients from the galactic center. At the moment, the category includes only 3 objects, the search for which took more than 10 years. The new square-kilometer array telescope, which should be commissioned in 2028, will help solve the mystery and possibly recognize the alien signal. Syphilitic zombies. The origins of syphilis remain controversial, with scientists putting forward 2 main theories. The Columbian theory claims that the disease was brought to Europe by Christopher Columbus's sailors after returning from the New World in 1493. The other version, the pre-Columbian theory, is based on references to syphilis-like symptoms in ancient Greek texts, suggesting that it existed long before Columbus's expeditions. The first recorded outbreak of syphilis in Europe occurred in 1495 when French soldiers returned from a campaign in Naples. The disease spread quickly and took on horrific forms. Syphilis affects the skin and mucous membranes, causing ulcers and tissue destruction. In the later stages, the infected suffered from such severe skin lesions that their faces and limbs were disfigured beyond recognition. The flesh literally disintegrated, and the infected looked like real, living dead. These syphilitic zombies wandered the streets, leaving behind a trail of decomposing skin. They experienced unbearable pain and walked with difficulty. Their movements and appearance reminded us of modern zombies from horror films. The disease not only destroyed them physically, but also isolated them from society, leaving them alone and suffering.
Log coffin culture. An ancient legacy left by a culture that flourished in northwestern Thailand is surprising archaeologists with its unique burial customs. Some 40 burial sites where people found their final rest in teak coffins decorated with intricate designs testify to a highly developed Iron Age culture. Researchers from Germany and Thailand analyzed the DNA of ancient people to uncover connections between different communities. Between 2300 and 1000 BC, a mysterious culture flourished in Mae Hong Son province. DNA analysis of 33 ancient people from 5 coffins found that genetic relatedness played a key role in burial traditions, highlighting the importance of family ties in choosing a burial site. The study was a breakthrough in Southeast Asian archaeology, providing the first analysis of genetic and cultural relationships at the level of ancient communities. Despite the difficulty of preserving DNA in tropical climates, scientists have identified 2 major genetic lineages linked to agriculture, indicating deep connections to the Yangtze and Yellow River valleys in China. Has the first battle with aliens already happened? On August 26, 1946, an American scientific expedition set out for the South Pole. It was led by naval officer and explorer Admiral Richard Byrd, who took part in the First World War. The expedition involved 13 ships, 33 aircraft, and almost 5,000 U.S. Navy soldiers. The group under the command of the Admiral returned only 9 months later, reporting that it had to engage in battle with the remnants of the Third Reich and possibly aliens. Flying objects attacked the expedition members and caused significant damage to the American group. Byrd in his report claimed to have seen unidentified devices capable of moving at incredible speeds, changing their location almost instantly. At that time, the Admiral's statements, despite his high status, seemed like fiction. However, in 2018, a satellite image revealed a contrail left by something moving at incredible speeds. The trail stretched across the entire Earth, connecting the South and North Poles, which is about 20,000 kilometers. The maximum duration of preservation of the trace and its shape is 30 minutes, while most of it begins to dissipate after 15 minutes. Based on the data obtained, we can say that the object that left the contrail was moving at a speed of at least 80,000 kilometers per hour, which is 10 times higher than the speed of the fastest aircraft existing at the moment. Life of the ancient Egyptians. In the daily life of the ancient Egyptians, breakfast did not have the same extensive menu as modern meals. Simple but nutritious foods formed the basis. Emmer bread, a little honey or figs for sweetness, and perhaps a small amount of goat's milk cheese. This meal emphasized practicality and the need to maintain energy for the day ahead. It is important to note that the breakfast for the pharaoh and his family could have been more varied and rich, including meat products and fruits, emphasizing their status and difference from ordinary citizens. During the feast, the Egyptians displayed a wooden mummies for everyone to see. This custom served as a reminder of the brevity of life and the importance of enjoying the moment. This tradition may have been inspired by a belief in an afterlife and a desire to remind guests of the inevitability of death, which made every moment of earthly life even more precious. The very presence of a mummy at feasts may also have had ritual significance, linking the living with the world of the dead and ensuring the favor of the gods. Shoes in ancient Egypt were not only a practical item but also an expression of social status and even a means of symbolic communication. Sandals of the upper classes could be made of expensive materials and decorated with complex patterns which emphasized their high position. The images of enemies on the soles of the sandals symbolized their defeat and submission, serving as a reminder of the power and might of their owner. The ancient Egyptians were extremely attached to their pets, which is reflected in the art and literature of the time. Cats, dogs, and even more exotic animals such as lions and monkeys were often depicted alongside their owners, demonstrating the deep emotional bonds that form between man and animal. These animals not only served as companions but also performed important functions in households and religious ceremonies. Cats in Egypt were especially revered, associated with the goddess Bastet, a symbol of protection and fertility. These animals were considered guardians of the house from evil spirits and pests. Dogs, associated with Anubis, the god of funeral rites, also occupied an important place in the life of the Egyptians. They not only served as faithful companions and assistants in the hunt, but also symbolized eternal loyalty and protection. Fashion in ancient Egypt reflected not only social status, but also religious beliefs. Clothes made of fine linen, which made it possible to withstand the hot climate, were complemented by bright jewelry, which not only served as decoration, but also as amulets. Attention to detail in clothing, jewelry, and makeup indicates a highly developed sense of aesthetics and a belief in the protective magic of these objects. Makeup, especially the famous black coal, was used not only to highlight the eyes, but also as protection from sunlight and evil spirits. Beer was not just a popular drink in ancient Egypt, it played a central role in the economy and social life. Being affordable and nutritious, beer served as the main drink for all segments of the population and was even used as a means of payment. Beer production was a carefully regulated process controlled by the state, highlighting its importance not only as a commodity, but also as an important element in religious and social rituals. Children's hairstyles in ancient Egypt were not only aesthetic, but also symbolic. The strand of youth left on children's heads was not just a fashionable adornment. It symbolized their age and social status and also protected them from evil spirits and diseases. This strand was cut during the ceremony of transition into adulthood, highlighting the change in their social status. Funerary portraits, which appeared in Egypt during the period of Greco-Roman influence, represent a unique combination of Egyptian religious traditions and Greco-Roman artistic techniques. These portraits, depicting the dead with extraordinary realism, were intended to preserve their appearance for the afterlife, serving as a bridge between the worlds of the living and the dead. Computer that is 2,500 years old. Aegean Sea, April 1900. Literally 100 meters from the coast of a small island, divers discovered the site of an ancient shipwreck located at a depth of 45 meters. For 2 years, researchers and archaeologists studied the debris, among which they discovered part of a metal box made of coral and created in the 2nd century BC. This device is the first mechanical computer ever discovered by mankind. The mechanism is 1,500 years older than any similar artifact and contains dozens of gears that control the mechanism. It is assumed that an analog computer could be used to predetermine astronomical events. Ancient Greece, it turns out, had knowledge of mechanics and could create devices, which completely changes our perception of history. It is assumed that the ship set sail from the shores of the island of Rhodes because this place was considered a haven of high technology of that time. The poets of ancient Greece repeatedly mentioned in their works animated statues that could freeze in place or begin to move as if life had been breathed into them. It is quite possible that this was not a literary device, but the first prototypes of robots created by man. The Greeks claimed that they received knowledge from the gods who descended to them from heaven. It is possible that in this way they explained the meeting with aliens who decided to share their technology with humanity. A couple from the United States with a strange story. In 1875, in downtown Philadelphia, in an old cemetery, workers discovered the mummified bodies of a man and a woman believed to have died in 1792, although this information was later refuted. No records of the Ellenbogen family or other documents confirming their existence have been found. The bodies went through a process of saponification, becoming soap mummies due to the specific burial conditions, where the fat was converted into a soap mass, slowing decomposition. The man, who was more saponified than the woman, and the woman with vestiges of blonde hair on her head, presumably died at a later date than originally thought, which was confirmed by the discovery of round-headed pins, the technology of which did not emerge until 1824. The man was likely a manual laborer and had healthy bones but degenerative changes in the cervical spine. Both had preserved internal organs, but the man had poor oral hygiene, resulting in most of his teeth falling out during his lifetime. The woman died at about 30 years old and had health problems including ureteral and gallstones and vascular calcification. The soap lady is now on display at the Mutter Museum, and the soap man is in storage at the Smithsonian Natural History Museum, where scientists are studying them to try to uncover the mysteries of their lives and deaths.
Tried to treat cancer. A study of 2 ancient skulls yielded surprising results. They showed signs of cancer and traces of attempts to treat it. These findings show that the ancient Egyptians knew about cancer and tried to fight it. Signs of this disease included severe tissue destruction and small metastases. Particularly interesting are the cut marks around the lesions, suggesting that the Egyptians may have attempted to remove the tumors surgically. The ancient Egyptians were famous for their medical knowledge. They knew how to treat fractures, treat injuries, make prosthetics, and even fill teeth. However, their ability to treat cancer was limited. Scientists studied 2 skulls from the Duckworth collection at the University of Cambridge. One skull belonged to a 35-year-old man with signs of cancer and surgical interventions. The other skull belonged to a woman over 50 years old with cancerous lesions and signs of healed injuries. The researchers stressed that studying ancient remains is fraught with difficulties, with incomplete skeletons and a lack of clinical history making conclusions difficult. However, these findings provide new insights into ancient medical practices and highlight the need for further research in paleontology.
Crocodiles in Christian churches. Imagine, you enter a church and there is a crocodile there. Sounds like the start of a joke, right? However, this is a real story because the medieval temples of Europe were actually decorated with stuffed animals of these reptiles. The crocodile settled in the Seville Cathedral back in the 13th century thanks to King Alfonso X, who received it as a gift from the Egyptian emir. After the reptile died, its skin was stretched over a wooden base and hung from the ceiling of the cathedral. In Italy, in the sanctuary of the Blessed Virgin Mary of Mercy in KirTop, a crocodile hangs, reminiscent of the proximity of evil for 5 centuries. And in the Chapel of the Virgin Mary in Macerata, there is another one according to different versions brought by the Crusaders or which came to the city itself in 1589. The Church of St. Mary in Ponte Nossa has preserved a crocodile skin since 1594, despite orders to remove it. And 40 kilometers from St. Petersburg in Oranienbaum, priest Oleg Emelianenko in the Church of St. Spiridon set up a real zoo where Nile crocodiles live, among other animals. Thus, stuffed crocodiles in churches are not a myth, but part of a religious and cultural tradition reflecting historical connections and beliefs of past centuries. Strange object hovering in the sky for several hours. According to Islamic scholars, there are verses in the Holy Quran that indirectly hint at the presence of extraterrestrial life. Perhaps this is why there is more and more information that residents of Islamic countries such as Pakistan are witnessing UFOs. On January 25, 2022, in Islamabad, a local resident watching the sunset from the roof of his house noticed a mysterious black object hovering in the sky. An unidentified thing, more reminiscent of a flying stone, was motionless for several hours. Changing its shape over time, the object became like a triangle. It is noteworthy that the flying object did not emit or reflect light, completely freezing at an altitude of about 500 meters. The local resident was shocked and watched the object with interest, filming it on his phone as he had never seen anything like it. Experts who watched the video are skeptical about the discovery. Pakistan is a country with high military potential that is actively developing unmanned aerial devices. It is likely that what was seen was a loitering munition or a drone performing a test flight. Despite the fact that the discovery was made in 2022, the video is of rather poor quality. This does not allow experts to make an unambiguous verdict, leaving a chance for the extraterrestrial origin of the mysterious object.
The Sphinx was not built by people. A recent discovery by a team of scientists from New York University radically changes our perception of the history of the Great Sphinx of Giza. Contrary to the generally accepted belief that the monument was carved by the ancient Egyptians, a new theory argues that the Sphinx is the result of natural forces. Researchers paid attention to yardangs, natural sculptures formed by erosion in desert conditions, reminiscent of animals or people in their contours. Such formations are typical for archaeological zones with a similar climate, including the territory of Egypt. In experiments simulating erosion in the laboratory, scientists have proven that when exposed to wind and water, soft rock can form figures remarkably reminiscent of a sphinx. So perhaps the ancient Egyptians just polished and complemented the already existing natural form, giving it clearer features. This study opens a new page in understanding the processes of formation of archaeological sites and the role of nature in the art of antiquity.
Minnie Dean's story. In the 1890s, in the city of Invercargill, New Zealand, a woman named Minnie Dean was engaged in so-called baby farming. She took in orphans and called them their foster mother. Minnie actively searched for babies, placing ads in newspapers, and soon the number of children in her care began to arouse suspicion. It was revealed that she was trying to ensure their lives, which alerted the local police. The cops began to closely monitor Dean as rumors began to circulate about the disappearance of children. The first alarming case occurred in 1893 when a 6-month-old baby went missing. Then, 2 years later, a newborn girl disappeared. Suspicions grew and the police continued to diligently monitor Minnie. Finally, on May 2, 1895, a reporter spotted her boarding a train with a baby in a hat box. But when she returned, all she had was a box, which seemed considerably heavier than usual, and no baby. Minnie later explained that the baby had died during the night and in a panic she had put the body in the box to get home safely. However, the police, called by a reporter, raided her property. In Minnie Dean's garden they found the bodies of several children, including a girl who had been buried only recently. This became the decisive evidence and Minnie was brought to trial. She was found guilty and sentenced to death. She was executed on August 12, 1895, making her the only woman to be executed in New Zealand. Burials of people with dogs and horses. In the vicinity of Verona, Italy, archaeologists have discovered ancient burial grounds where people were buried along with animals dating back to the pre-Roman period. The study, published in PLOS 1, found that in addition to food animals, the remains of dogs and horses were found in the graves, which is a rarity in archaeology and raises interest in understanding the meaning of these burials. Of the 161 burials examined in the necropolis near Verona, dating back to the late Iron Age, every 10th contained animals. In 4 cases, the remains of dogs and horses were found that were not intended for food, which became especially significant for scientists. Attempts to link human and animal remains through demographic and genetic data have been unsuccessful, showing that the buried humans and animals were not related. The burials ranged from an infant buried with a dog to adults with the remains of horses. This diversity opens the door to different interpretations and speculation about the symbolic meaning of dogs and horses in ancient cultures, as well as possible unknown burial rituals.
Monolith in the middle of the desert. In November 2020, in the Red Rock Desert of southern Utah, a helicopter crew and biologists were counting livestock when they noticed something startling. Approaching the mysterious object, they discovered a large, shiny silver object located in a canyon inaccessible to humans. Utah authorities tried to keep the discovery a secret, but soon data about it was leaked on social networks. People struck by the object called it the Utah Monolith, a remnant of aliens. A mysterious metal monument that found itself in the middle of the desert has become the subject of fantasies and the rich imagination of people who believe in the existence of more intelligent civilizations living on other planets. It was assumed that this monolith was left by an alien spaceship so that they could contact us. Many were convinced that the monolith was built from alien building materials. The materials have unique properties that are not found in nature on our planet. The metal and ceramic composite is capable of absorbing radar waves. It is known that alien ships with anti-gravity properties can have a similar alloy. Some believe that the US government not only knows about these materials, but is also using the remains of alien ships to create the next generation of weapons. Experts carefully checked the monolith to determine the type of metal and also tried to find cavities in the mysterious object. Despite all the theories and speculation on social networks, scientists are convinced that the monolith was created by man and perhaps placed in the canyon only to become a manifestation of the beauty of a work of art. Tomb and thousands of relics. Archaeologists have made a surprising discovery at Wuwandong, one of the largest archaeological sites in the Kingdom of Chu.
A sumptuous 2,200-year-old tomb has been unearthed in eastern China that may have belonged to an emperor of the Kingdom of Chu, an important region during Chinese history.
Chu was one of the 7 warring kingdoms, along with Qin, Han, Wei, Zhao, Qi, and Yan. Their unification is considered the dawn of modern China. The Kingdom of Chu existed for more than 800 years until it was overthrown by the Kingdom of Qin in 223 BC. At Wuwandong, researchers found a cemetery with a chariot, sacrifice pits, and a tomb that likely belonged to the owner of the cemetery. Among the many artifacts, boards for the burial chamber, bamboo mats, and lacquerware attracted particular attention. In total, more than 1,000 cultural relics were found, dating back to approximately 220 BC. Among them are bronze ritual vessels, musical instruments, lacquerware, and plant remains. The most interesting find was the central coffin with an inscription containing more than 1,000 hieroglyphs. The scale of the tomb, its complex structure, and rich contents led researchers to believe that it belonged to the emperor of the Chu Kingdom. To preserve the remains, archaeologists worked in a low-oxygen laboratory built at the excavation site. Digital scanning and video recording were used to create a 3D model of the tomb.
Legacy of Ancient Egypt. Ancient Egypt, as one of the earliest and longest-lasting civilizations in human history, left an indelible mark on the cultural and scientific landscape of the world. Its influence is felt in the architecture, art, religion, astronomy, and medicine of many subsequent cultures, especially the ancient Greek and Roman civilizations. The architectural achievements of the Egyptians, especially the construction of the pyramids, inspired the Greeks and Romans to create their own monumental structures. The concept of pillars and obelisks was borrowed and adapted in various forms in classical architecture. Egyptian symbolism and style were reflected in Roman temples and public buildings, emphasizing respect for ancient knowledge and cultural heritage. The scientific achievements of the Egyptians, including the development of mathematics and astronomy, had a significant influence on the development of these sciences in Greece and beyond. Egyptian methods of calculating time in the calendar, as well as their knowledge of the stars and planets, were the basis for further astronomical research in the ancient world. In medicine, the Egyptians achieved significant success, especially in the fields of surgery and pharmacology. Records of medical procedures found in Egyptian papyri reveal the ancient Egyptians' sophisticated knowledge of treating illness and injury. This knowledge was passed on through Greek scholars such as Herodotus and Plato, who studied in Egypt and influenced the development of medicine in Europe. Ancient Egypt continues to inspire modern culture, science, and art. Images and symbols borrowed from Egyptian mythology and history regularly appear in literature, movies, music, and even fashion. Egyptian motifs are used in the design of jewelry, clothing, and home furnishings, demonstrating the enduring interest in this ancient culture. Efforts to preserve Egyptian monuments, including pyramids, temples, and tombs, are an important part of global efforts to protect cultural heritage. Conservation and restoration programs supported by international organizations such as UNESCO help protect these priceless monuments for future generations. Interest in ancient Egypt, fueled by both new archaeological finds and modern technology, continues to grow. This allows us to not only preserve but also expand our understanding of this unique civilization, as well as explore new ways of interacting with its cultural heritage. The power of virtual reality and interactive museum exhibits opens up new horizons for education and cultural exchange, offering a deeper and more intimate immersion into the world of the ancient Egyptians. Innovations in archaeology and conservation, such as satellite archaeology and advanced dating techniques, continue to unlock the mysteries of the past. These technologies not only help scientists discover lost cities and tombs, but also provide new data about the climate, social structure, and even the diet of the ancient Egyptians, which in turn sheds light on the reasons for the rise and fall of this great civilization. In addition, growing interest in the reconstruction and revival of ancient Egyptian crafts, such as papyrus making, earthenware making, and traditional construction methods, is helping to preserve these ancient techniques for future generations. Overall, the legacy of ancient Egypt continues to influence the modern world in diverse and sometimes unexpected ways. From the inspiring achievements of ancient masters to ongoing efforts to preserve and study their creations, ancient Egypt remains a living reminder that the past always matters to the present and future, offering lessons, inspiration, and food for thought to generations of explorers, creators, and dreamers.
Friendship between the inhabitants of ancient Egypt and aliens. The topic of the connection between ancient Egypt and UFOs is a subject of interest to many researchers and paranormal enthusiasts. Many facts remain speculation, but there are also details that defy logical explanation. In some temples and pyramids, you can find drawings reminiscent of modern ideas about UFOs. The most famous example is the image on the walls of the Temple of Ramesses II at Abu Simbel. On one of the walls, researchers found an image of a flying saucer with a round shape and strange aerodynamic characteristics. Other evidence includes numerous papyrus records about UFOs. One of them is translated as follows: "And a circle of fire appeared in the sky. It had no head, but a terrible stench came out of its mouth. Its body was huge. It was voiceless." A little scary, isn't it? Similar records belong to a chronicler who lived 3,500 years ago. He claimed that the sky was covered with fiery discs, but the pharaoh did not chicken out and did not allow the soldiers to flee, after which the flying objects disappeared in an instant. Concepts such as winged shields and discs of fire appear repeatedly in ancient Egyptian written religious sources. Iron was practically unmined in ancient Egypt and was a rare metal, but writings often mention iron thrones, scepters, and clothing intended for the pharaoh. The sun god was dressed in metal and sat on a throne of iron and fire, which also sounds quite strange. The Abydos hieroglyphs discovered in the hall of the funeral temple of Pharaoh Seti deserve special attention. Here, ufologists noticed a helicopter, a submarine, a glider, and an airship. For a long time, photographs of the find were considered falsified, but soon their authenticity was confirmed. There were suggestions that the inhabitants of ancient Egypt were able to look into the future, while other scientists believed that aliens traveled in time and simply told them about the events of the 20th century. Skeptics categorically deny such ideas, believing that the images were the result of the superposition of two hieroglyphic inscriptions, which suffered destruction of the plaster between them. There is another, no less amazing drawing where a flying disc drops an aerial bomb, but critics here have their own logical explanation. Where did the ancient Egyptians' gods come from? Ancient Egypt continues to excite the minds of scientists with its secrets, one of which is the country of Punt. Unlike the mythical Atlantis and Agartha, Punt was a very real place, located somewhere in eastern Africa. The Egyptians sent trading expeditions there, bringing back goods that one could only dream of: precious trees, gold, ivory, and aromatic resins. The first mention of Punt dates back to the 26th century BC, during the time of Pharaoh Cheops. Expeditions continued for centuries, bringing untold riches to Egypt. An important step was the construction of a canal connecting the Nile and the Red Sea under Pharaoh Senusret III, which simplified the route to Punt. The exact location of Punt is still a matter of debate among scholars. There is an assumption that it was located in the area of modern Somalia, Djibouti, Eritrea, and Sudan, and could also cover the territory as far as southern Africa. Some researchers believe that Egyptian sailors could even reach the Cape of Good Hope. Legends and myths about Punt have been preserved in Egyptian culture as the homeland of the gods and ancestors of the Egyptians. The last known expedition to Punt was undertaken under Pharaoh Ramses III. After this, travel to the land of wealth ceased and Punt gradually turned into a legend. Today, archaeological research in Punt is complicated by the political situation in the region, making it one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the ancient world. Relations between Egypt and Punt, as far as we know, have always remained peaceful, which is a unique fact in the history of interaction between ancient civilizations. Punt's trace still lives on in the name of the autonomous region of Somalia, Puntland. Unique round burials. In December 2023, archaeologists from the Museum of Cultural History discovered a unique burial of infants in a quarry near Fredrikstad, Norway. Most of the 41 graves contain cremated remains of infants, a rarity for the period 800–200 BC. Scientists determined the age of those buried by thin fragments of cranial bones characteristic of infants. Each grave was surrounded by stone circles, and the remains were placed in urns or directly under the stones. Interestingly, cooking pits and fire pits were found near the graves, indicating rituals and gatherings associated with burials. The site may have been a meeting place for an ancient community where people mourned the loss of children. Mass graves of children are rare in archaeology. This discovery provides insight into the attitudes of ancient communities towards children, showing that they were an important part of society. And even thousands of years ago, people had great difficulty coping with the loss of their children. Bronze Age wooden well. Archaeologists recently discovered a well-preserved Bronze Age wooden well in Oxfordshire, England. The well was found during the construction of Benson Relief Road. John Boothroyd, senior project manager, said they expected to find a regular hole but came across a preserved wooden post driven vertically into the ground. Further excavations revealed that the pillars were part of a wooden well. The moist soil contributed to the excellent preservation of the tree. Archaeologists digitally documented the structure and carefully dismantled it for transport to Oxfordshire museums. Wood samples were sent for analysis to determine its type. In addition to the well, archaeologists found flint, animal bones, and pottery fragments indicating their use for storage and waste. Despite difficult conditions, the team successfully fixed the well. Soil samples will help create a more complete picture of the surrounding landscape and the scale of the settlement. The Strange Desires of Dr. Gottfried Nock. Sometimes there is only a thin line between the greatness of the mind and the borders of madness. It seems that talent is clearly not enough to bring brilliant ideas to life. It takes something more, like a unique way of thinking. Here's a story to prove it. In 1813, Gottfried Nock was born in Halberstadt, Germany, who became famous thanks to his unique invention, a special embalming fluid with which he was able to mummify dozens of bodies, including his own. Having moved from Germany to Venezuela in 1840, Knoche settled in La Guaira in the north of the country, where he soon became part of the local community and founded the Hospital of San Juan de Dios. During his years of work from 1854 to 1856, he gained a reputation as a do-gooder. selflessly caring for the poor and fighting cholera that was ravaging the region. Nosh was distinguished by his burning interest not only in life but also in the aesthetics of death. He was obsessed with the idea of circumventing the inevitable decomposition of bodies after death and began experimenting with unused bodies, a practice that went far beyond the usual medical research of the time. As a result of Noka's efforts, a liquid formula was developed that allows bodies to be preserved unchanged. Anticipating his own death, Noka made sure that his assistant Amelie Weissman, whom the locals called the Witch of Avila, prepared the liquid for his body. There is a legend that he even asked her to inject the serum into his living body before imprisoning himself in the mausoleum forever. Over time, the Noche Mausoleum and his Buena Vista estate turned into ruins, but they still keep the secrets of their mummified inhabitants, including famous personalities of Venezuela. This place attracts both medical students and adventurers, although the very composition of Noche's embalming fluid remains unknown. This story reminds us how a great mind can lead to unusual, sometimes frightening discoveries. Where do you think the line between genius and madness lies? Share your thoughts in the comments.
Secret UFO video hidden by the U.S. government. On November 23, 2019, near the southern border between Arizona and Mexico, Department of Homeland Security agents flew aircraft to locate and arrest smugglers transporting illegal substances into the United States. At some point, their infrared camera captured something that had a rather strange shape. A mysterious object visually reminiscent of a rubber duck amazed observers and then the American government. In September 2021, a secret video was given to an expert studying aliens. After receiving the video from the Department of Homeland Security, Andy Marshall was shocked to see an object that resembled a rubber duck. First appearing on the internet, the video amazed viewers with the fact that the unknown object is about 2 meters long and moves without any wings or traces of exhaust gases. An object resembling a duck flew in a certain direction for about an hour, and the video of the official federal agency does not allow one to think that this was a montage. The ufology community takes the video extremely seriously, believing that it proves the existence of UFOs. Experts who analyze the recording also differ in their opinions. It is known that unidentified flying objects have common behavioral characteristics, including speed, camouflage, and altitude. As for the so-called rubber duck, it moved too slowly, covering only 15 kilometers in half an hour. Such wind speeds are normal in this area, so it is possible that the secret UFO video is just an object that was picked up by air currents.
Creepy social experiment. In the 1960s, Germany had the shocking practice of handing over orphans and homeless children to people with pedophilic tendencies. This was done under the espoused theory that such adults would show special care and attention to the children. It was assumed that these people's desire for close communication would help create a warm and caring environment for the children. This practice, known as the Kentler experiment, was initiated by psychologist Helmut Kentler and was carried out mainly in West Berlin. Kentler claimed that children in these families received more emotional support and care. The experiment was a government initiative and continued for decades, despite numerous indications of harm to the children. It was only many years later that the program was seriously criticized and victims began to receive compensation. Golden tongues and images of the gods. Archaeologists from Egypt's Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities have uncovered an astonishing collection of artifacts during excavations at Tel el-Dir. The site has enriched Egypt's history with 63 mud brick tombs and other simple burials. The team uncovered a variety of artifacts, including gold foil pieces depicting gods such as Isis, Bastet, and Horus, as well as protective symbols and languages that allowed the deceased to speak before the court of Osiris in the afterlife. These foil fragments stand out for their craftsmanship and the variety of materials used. Numerous funerary offerings were also found, including amulets, Ushabti statues, figurines, coins, and a mirror, illustrating the burial customs of the 26th dynasty. Among the finds was a ceramic vessel containing 38 bronze coins from the Ptolemaic era depicting the head of Zeus Ammon. These coins, dated to the late 3rd century BC, may have been buried during a major revolt against the Ptolemaic dynasty around 206 BC.
Aztec children Maximo and Bartola. Mysterious pages of history have always attracted people, and the ancient Aztec civilization is no exception. It was this interest that one inventive manager decided to take advantage of, creating an unusual hoax that first attracted attention in 1848. The story of Maximo and Bartola, brother and sister from El Salvador, has captivated the world. Their uniqueness lay not only in their rare disease, microcephaly, but also in the way they were presented to the public. Finding themselves in the hands of American manager Morris after a series of deceptions and machinations, their lives become a performance. Morris created a fascinating story about children allegedly found in a lost Aztec temple and presented them as the last descendants of a sacred race. By dressing them in costumes with Aztec symbols and giving public performances, he was able to convince the public of their unusual origins. Interest in these Aztec children was enormous not only among ordinary viewers, but also in the scientific community, because at that time the world was gripped by the fever of searching for ancient civilizations. Maximo and Bartola became stars, studied by scientists, met with presidents and kings, and traveled the world attracting admiration and controversy. But like all miracles, their glory faded over time. Attempts to revive interest in 1867 in London were unsuccessful, and gradually Maximo and Bartola faded from public view. Despite the unknown fate in their final years, the story of these amazing individuals remains a shining example of how human imagination and thirst for knowledge can create unique stories. I'll ask you a question. Do you think a similar story could happen today, and what would be the reaction of the public and the scientific community? UFO in Roswell, the beginning of a government conspiracy. On June 24, 1947, a pilot was flying over the Cascade Mountains of Washington state while searching for a crashed military plane. At some point, he noticed 9 crescent-shaped objects flying in formation at an altitude of more than 3 kilometers at a speed of 1,900 kilometers per hour, which at that time seemed unrealistic. Arnold Kenneth was the first to describe unidentified flying objects as saucers. The media learned about this and coined the phrase "flying saucer," which later became an integral part of the main modern mystery of mankind. 2 weeks later, on July 7, 1947, a rancher in Roswell contacted the sheriff reporting strange debris. He had heard a story about flying saucers and suggested that one of them might have crashed during a recent storm. After receiving the debris, the sheriff turned it over to the Army Air Base. Soon, the military arrived at the ranch, which began a series of stunning events. Within 24 hours, the authorities completely changed their attitude towards the discovery, saying that the journalists had made a mistake and that what happened had nothing to do with a UFO. In 1978, the Roswell UFO crash became a popular topic. Again, the former military man admitted that the logical explanations were a cover-up and the photographs were staged. He claimed that the real wreckage was replaced to hide the existence of aliens. Those participating in the search knew for sure that it was an extraterrestrial spacecraft, but could not tell people about it. Curious scientists found several more retired military personnel, and they all confirmed the fact of the UFO crash. Skeptics believe that they lied for the sake of a fee, but no one has yet been able to refute or confirm that the US government hit a crashed alien spaceship. To believe in UFOs or not, everyone decides for themselves. Some facts of extraterrestrial civilization are still beyond doubt, forcing us to accept a new reality. At the same time, a Pentagon UFO hunter and former head of the Anomalous Phenomena Investigations Office gave an interview that cannot be ignored. Sean Kirkpatrick admitted that his office has not found any real evidence regarding alien origins. In addition, he denies government conspiracies to hide evidence of the existence of aliens. At the same time, U.S. Air Force veteran David Grush gave a scandalous interview confirming that he participated in hiding the bodies of aliens and extraterrestrial vehicles. Which of them speaks sincerely and which is afraid to admit the truth? Time will tell, but you can share your opinions in the comments. Thanks for your views. Bye, everyone.